There's something people realize far too late. At first, money doesn't look like it's working for you at all. In fact, to be completely honest, the first few years almost feel insulting. You're setting money aside from your paycheck, using your card a little more carefully, spending less when you go out, maybe canceling a few subscriptions, maybe ordering food one or two fewer times a week. And then you look back at your investment account, and instead of some massive life-changing shift, you see a tiny increase. That's exactly where people lose motivation. Because in their minds, wealth grows in a straight line. If I put in more money, I should move forward a little more. But that's not what really happens. Net worth doesn't grow in a straight line. It tests your patience up to certain thresholds, and then suddenly, its character changes. That's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. But we're not going to do it with vague, empty motivational lines. We're going to do it with a real scenario. We're going to take a specific starting point, move through 6 levels one by one, and look not only at what changes at each level, but also at roughly how long it takes to reach them. The real value of this video is not just saying, this number matters. It's showing what actually changes in your life once you reach that number, and why so many people lose patience before they ever get there. So stay until the end. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make is deciding that the magic never happens, when in reality they quit right before the point where it finally begins. Let me ask for one small thing from you here. If you enjoy this kind of content, like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're ready, let's begin. Level 1, $10,000. Money quiets panic for the first time. We actually stopped here in the previous video. Because $10,000 may not look like a huge amount of money, but it's one of the first serious thresholds that changes the tone of your life. At a 9% annual return, $10,000 has the potential to generate about $900 a year, or about $75 a month. That number won't retire anyone. But the point was never that $75 itself. The point is what $10,000 makes you feel. At this level, life starts to come out of constant alarm mode for the first time. If the car breaks down, it still annoys you. If a medical expense comes up, you still get tense. But not every small problem feels like it's about to tear your whole life apart. For the first time, you notice something very strange. Money still doesn't make you free, but it does move you a little farther away from being someone who is constantly one hit away from falling apart. The biggest mistake people make at this level is underestimating $10,000. Most people look at that number and say, that's not that much. And they're right. It's not that much. But the power of $10,000 isn't in buying a car or showing off. It's in getting through a bad week without running straight back to the credit card. And even if that looks small from the outside, it changes your nervous system from the inside. And at this stage, money stops being just money that needs to sit there. Imagine that a $1,500 course appears in front of you, one that could give you a better skill. Before, that would have looked completely impossible. Now, using part of that money for something like that starts to look like a move that could affect your salary or position over the next 2 years. In other words, sometimes $10,000 gives you power simply by sitting there, and sometimes it opens the door to growth when it's used well. For the first time, life stops being something that can be explained by a single paycheck alone. But let's be honest, $10,000 is not carrying you. You're still carrying it. And that's exactly where the second level begins. Level 2, $25,000. The portfolio starts making a visible contribution. Now imagine you keep the same system going. You continue adding $500 a month on top of your original $10,000, and the portfolio continues returning an average of 9%. After about 2 years, you're at $25,000. And this is where it starts to get interesting. Your portfolio now has the potential to generate about $2,250 a year, or about $188 a month. That still isn't a huge number, but it's no longer invisible either. Because $188 is no longer almost nothing. That's a phone bill, internet, a few subscriptions, or part of a grocery budget. So for the first time, money stops acting like some distant dream and starts touching a small part of your real-life expenses. At this stage, your relationship with money changes. Before, when you looked at your investment account, all you could really see was the money you had personally put in. Now you can say, I'm still adding $500 a month, but this account has started adding about $188 a month on top of that. And that's where a subtle but important psychological shift happens. Because from this point on, you stop looking at certain expenses only through the price tag. A $1,200 phone upgrade is no longer just a $1,200 phone. You start thinking, if that $1,200 stayed here, it could become about $6,700 in 20 years, or about $10,300 in 25 years. And in that moment, the question stops being, am I buying a phone? And becomes, which future option am I giving up? That's why this level is both precious and dangerous. It's precious because money is answering you for the first time. It's dangerous because this is exactly where many people start relaxing too early. Once someone reaches $25,000, it becomes very easy to say, okay, the system works, and loosen up too much. But this level is still the part of the journey that feels good while remaining fragile. The good part is that your portfolio finally has a voice. The bad part is that the voice is still not that strong. At the next level, things become much more visible. Level 3, $50,000. The market starts catching up to your monthly discipline. If you keep going with the same structure, you'll reach $50,000 in about 4 years and 9 months. And this is where those first years that tested your patience begin to make a little more sense. Because $50,000 means a growth potential of about $4,500 a year, or about $375 a month. And here's the first big difference. The money the market is generating for you starts approaching the amount you yourself are contributing every month. You're still adding $500 a month, but now the portfolio can generate about $375 a month on its own. For the first time, the feeling becomes much clearer. I am not carrying this account all by myself anymore. That's a huge turning point. During the early years, the heavy lifting was almost entirely yours. Now the system is starting to shoulder part of the weight. For the first time, the money your money is making becomes too large to ignore. You're not rich at this point. You still can't walk away from everything. But for the first time, 1 year of growth can cover a small vacation, a few months of rent, or a more serious educational expense. A $5,000 specialization program, which would have looked too risky before, now starts to look like something that could pay for itself if it's the right move. Because now, losing that money won't destroy you, and if it's used well, it can actually accelerate you. But this is also exactly where someone can start thinking they're smarter than they are. It becomes very easy to move into a more expensive home, upgrade the car, or relax by saying, the investments are growing anyway. But small drifts at this stage delay the system's momentum, and this is really the heart of the video. Wealth doesn't grow only because you do the right things. Sometimes it grows because you avoid the reasonable mistakes at the wrong time. And then one day, as you move from $50,000 toward $100,000, the character of growth really starts to change. Level 4, $100,000. Money starts speaking louder than your monthly contribution. This is the threshold people misunderstand the most, because most people see $100,000 and think, okay, I'm 10% of the way to $1 million. That's not how the math works. In this same system, you reach $100,000 in about 8 years and 8 months. At that point, your portfolio has the potential to generate about $9,000 a year, or about $750 a month. Now stop and really think about that. You're still contributing $500 a month, but the portfolio now has the theoretical capacity to produce about $750 a month. That means, for the first time, money starts speaking louder than you do. By the time you hit $100,000, your total contributions are about $62,000. Roughly $38,000 of that account came from growth itself. In other words, at that point, nearly 38% of the account is no longer money you directly put in, but money that your money produced. That's why $100,000 is such a massive psychological threshold. For the first time, wealth starts to feel exponential instead of linear. At this point, your relationship with work, spending, and risk changes. A $2,000 mistake still hurts, yes, but now you can also see what that same $2,000 could become in 15 or 20 years. And at the same time, you can see what it could do for you if it were used well. A strong software course, a valuable certification, or equipment that helps you grow your work no longer looks like just an expense. Because investing has taught you something important. Money used in the right place today can change your income tomorrow. That's why $100,000 is not just savings, it's perspective. But even with all of this momentum, your whole life still hasn't completely changed yet. The good part is that the math is now speaking in your favor. The hard truth is that work is still central. Your salary is still the main engine. Level 5. $250,000. Money carries part of your life expenses for the first time. If you keep going with the same structure, after about 15 years and 10 months, you're at $250,000. And at that point, your portfolio has the potential to generate about $22,500 a year, or about $1,875 a month. That is the first time the number enters life with real weight, because $1,875 no longer feels like some abstract concept of growth. For many people, that's rent. For others, it's most of a mortgage. For some, it's health insurance and groceries together. In other words, the portfolio is no longer just something that might become useful in the future. It becomes a real asset that starts carrying part of the financial load of your life in the present. Your relationship with work changes dramatically here. For the first time, your entire life no longer feels like it stands on one paycheck alone. That paycheck is still very important, yes, but the portfolio is now meaningfully helping from the side, and that creates a huge psychological difference. When you're in a bad work environment, you start feeling like maybe you don't have to stay there forever. The possibility of rejecting a weak offer grows. The possibility of taking a few months to breathe and look for something better starts to feel real. And the opportunity cost becomes much sharper here. A $500 monthly lifestyle upgrade is no longer just $500. Because now you can genuinely feel what that money could become over time. Once you've seen what that same amount can turn into, if it stays inside the system for 20 years, every lifestyle increase crashes into the question, do I really want this? Or do I just want to look a little better from the outside? Level 6. At $650,000, money starts competing with labor. And at $1 million, the tone of life changes. This is where the world truly starts to feel different. If you keep the same system going, you reach $650,000 around year 25. At that point, the portfolio has the potential to generate about $58,500 a year, or about $4,875 a month. This is no longer something you describe as extra income. This is production that can sit at the same table as what many people earn from full-time work. And that changes the psychology of life. Because now, money doesn't just calm you down, it gives you leverage. If you don't like your job, you can start thinking that out loud. If you've wanted to try something entrepreneurial, it starts moving out of the category of romantic but ridiculous, and into the category of actually possible. Investing in a better skill, staying selective for longer, changing the tempo of your life a little, all of that becomes far more real here. And what's even more interesting is this. The jump from $650,000 to $1 million doesn't take as long as people think. In the same system, it takes about 4 years and 5 months to reach $1 million. That's where the slap of exponential growth really lands. The first $100,000 took about 8 years and 8 months. But the remaining $350,000, from $650,000 to $1 million, closes in about half that time. That's why money doesn't behave like a straight line. It behaves like a system that accelerates. At $1 million, your portfolio has the potential to generate about $90,000 a year, or about $7,500 a month. And at that point, something very basic changes in your head. The question stops being, what's going to happen this month, and becomes, how do I actually want to use my time? This is not the fake rich feeling people perform on social media. It's something cleaner, quieter, and stronger than that. Because at this point, money is not only protecting you, it's showing you alternative lives. Maybe the next million won't come right away. Maybe the market won't behave like this every year. Fine. But once someone sees that their portfolio can stand next to actual job income, they stop feeling like an outsider to the system. For the first time, they start feeling like a partner in it. And this level has its own trap too. People become very vulnerable to complacency here. They look at $1 million and think, all right, I've made it. But the people who create the biggest differences don't treat $1 million like the finish line. They treat it like the point where the game changes character. Because after $1 million, every new increase stops feeling as heavy as the first year's. At the first $100,000, patience was required. Here, the reward for patience is finally visible. So in short, at $10,000, the constant alarm in life starts to quiet down a little. At $25,000, the portfolio begins making a visible contribution. At $50,000, the market starts catching up to your monthly discipline. At $100,000, money starts speaking louder than your monthly contribution. At $250,000, the portfolio begins carrying part of your life expenses. At $650,000, money starts competing with labor. And at $1 million, it's no longer just that you have more money. Your relationship with time and work changes. So the real question after all of this is this: are you still just someone adding money into an account? Or are you actually building a system that is slowly, quietly, starting to work for you?